I don't know if you've ever heard of Admiral Rachel Levine. She served for 4 years as President Biden's Assistant Secretary for Health. She was, in fact, the very first transgender person to win Senate confirmation, and her portrait has been her official portrait has been hanging in the Humphrey Building in Washington D.C. since she was confirmed in 2021. Recently, however, a spokesperson for HHS, Health and Human Services, confirmed that Admiral Levine's official portrait has been altered. How? How has it been altered? Well, her former name has been placed where her actual name used to be, underneath the photograph, under the glass of the frame. So this was entirely intentional. This was not somebody committing an act of vandalism. Well, let me rephrase. It was not some random person coming along and committing an act of vandalism. This was vandalism and bigotry sanctioned by the government of the United States of America. Dead naming a trans person is extraordinarily offensive. Now, I don't know how offensive because I'm not trans. So I cannot imagine what that kind of malicious disrespect must feel like. But this is a small window into what and who we're dealing with. Because not only do we know what the act of vandalism was or who is responsible for it, we know why it was done. The Trump regime is led by a petty, weak, very small man who surrounds himself with petty, weak, very small people who are so miserable in their own lives that the only semblance of joy they get is in making other people feel bad because they feel so bad about themselves. They know on some deep, dark level that they have no inherently good qualities at all. They know that they are, to a person, useless, unaccomplished, unqualified hacks who don't understand the meaning of the things that are best about being human: empathy, compassion, decency, kindness. They know none of these things. They partake in none of them. They can confer none of them, and they can benefit from none of them. So they have to go out of their way to attack, to slander, to hurt people who are vulnerable and better because they have nothing else to fill the empty spaces where their heart should be. So that's partially what this is about, but it's also about the people they choose to target. It isn't just people who are better and more accomplished or actually accomplished. It's also about targeting those who don't have as much power and who are parts of vulnerable communities. I talk about this. I should probably talk about this more. More people need to be talking about this. The assaults upon the trans community being leveled by the Trump regime are horrific. They get worse every day. Being a member of the trans community in America is not just terrifying, it is dangerous. Not simply because trans people are being attacked, but because of the quality of the reasoning for those attacks. The Trump regime would have us believe that trans people do not have the right to exist. And if you can believe that, if you can be convinced to believe that, what won't you be capable of when and if you encounter a trans person. Any harm that comes to trans people can be laid squarely at the feet of Donald Trump, this vicious, bigoted, vile, cruel, pathetic excuse for a human being. Anybody who listens to him or takes their cues from him is just as bad. We have to do better. We need to sound the alarm about what is going on, because things are getting worse. Admiral Levine is an extraordinarily accomplished woman who served her country in many capacities over the years. She deserves to have her portrait hung in a place of honor that honors her and her service. She deserves her name to be on her official portrait. One of the problems that trans people face in this country, it is probably not the most serious one, but it is still an important one, is how very little representation there is for trans people. Admiral Levine provided some of that representation. And for her to be maligned in this way isn't just cruel and dangerous. It is inexcusable and inhumane. That's who is in charge of this country. The kind of people who would do something so creatively petty and cruel and negative just so they can feel better about their miserable selves. I don't know about you guys, but I am heartily sick of it. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's episode of Mary Trump Live. It is great to have you here. We're going to start with, the competition is stiff. One of the worst people in the Trump regime, the press secretary, who does what we pay her to do. She lied. Here she is covering for the way Donald's trade policies have harmed U.S. farmers.
Another huge win for our farmers following his successful meeting with President Xi in South Korea, where Trump convinced President Xi to continue purchasing or begin purchasing again American soybeans, which is something China wasn't doing under the last administration because they had no respect for our President Biden or for the country at the time. But now they know President Trump is not messing around. He's going to stand up for American farmers and American families. And so those purchases have begun from China, and American soybeans are being exported from the United States as we speak because of President Trump. He promised the farmers he would be there for them. He is delivering on that promise.
Yeah, I wish that had started sooner. Here's the deal. Donald arbitrarily placed tariffs on many goods, which stopped China from buying soybeans and other products from American farmers, which is something they had been doing. China was a massive market for American soybeans in particular. This devastated the business of many American farmers who relied on selling their goods to China. Now, as the New York Times reports, Donald has announced a $12 billion bailout for farmers who were harmed by his trade war, which would not have been necessary if it weren't for him. In other words, we, the taxpayers, are providing financial relief for harm caused to farmers by Donald's ridiculous, thoughtless policies. Farmers' losses this year are estimated to be around $35 billion to $43 billion. These figures far surpass the size of the bailout they'll be receiving. Additionally, previous Trump regime payouts have benefited larger, wealthier farms rather than those most harmed by tariffs, smaller farms, family-owned farms. But again, let's stop pretending that Donald or the Republican Party care about small businesses of any kind. We have to dispense with the notion that the Republican Party is pro small business, pro rural people, pro farmers, pro anything other than enriching Donald, his cronies, and helping a bunch of criminals get away with a bunch of crimes. Last night, an interview went live. This was between Donald and reporter Dasha Burns for Politico. One of the most egregious moments occurred when Donald was asked a very simple, point-blank question about the economy. Take a look.
But I do want to talk about the economy, sir, here at home, and I wonder what grade you would give
A
your
plus.
economy. A plus.
Yeah, A plus, 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 plus.
Only plus, 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 plus. The modesty. It burns. Now, there's lying and there's gaslighting, and then there's being so flipping delusional that you could actually answer that question that way with a straight face. Today, CNN broke down the cold, hard data, all of which contradicts Donald's falsehoods. Watch this.
If voters were giving this economy a report card, it's clear they would give it a much, much lower grade than what the president did. And I'm not just talking about those 5 pluses. I mean, consumer confidence is near all-time lows. A lot of voters think that the president's policies are doing more harm than good. Look at this Gallup poll from earlier in November. Just 27% of adults say that the economy is getting better. That's down from 31% in October, the lowest reading since July 2024 under former President Biden. Far more say it's getting worse. In the most recent jobs report, that's from September, we can see the blue line, that's wages. They are going up at a faster pace than the red line, which is inflation. However, you can see the gap in the last few months. It's starting to narrow, which means that inflation is catching up to prices. So let's zoom in a little bit. Bank of America put out a new report where they find that among high-income households, wages are up by 4%, well ahead of that 3% inflation. That's great, most since October of 2021. But unfortunately, that's just for high-income earners, right? When you look at middle-income households, wage growth is much, much softer. It's just 2.3%. That's the middle bar here. That's actually trailing inflation, which is on the left. That's not great at all. And look at this. Low income wages are up just 1.4% as of November. That is less than half the pace of inflation.
That's 2 more categories of people we can add to the list of Americans the Republican Party doesn't care about. Low income workers, working class people, 3, and the middle class. Donald and people like Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick can lie until the cows come home. It will not change the fact that Americans aren't stupid. They understand what their lived experiences are. They understand that their paychecks are not going as far, that they are not able to buy as much, and that they are struggling more. Just wait until those tariffs start kicking in right around the holidays and see how effective those lies and gaslighting will continue to be. Last week, the Trump regime unveiled Donald's national security strategy. As Politico notes, it emphasizes a larger military presence in the Western Hemisphere, tackling migration, drug trafficking, and ending censorship, whatever that means. Essentially, what they're saying is they're going to leave the EU to fend for itself. This harshly criticizes the European Union, our longtime allies, saying it is in civilizational decline. That sounds serious. Of course, the plan aligns the American government with Europe's far-right movement. Why would it not? Because this country is being run by a bunch of fascists. For more on that, watch this from German news outlet DW.
The section on promoting European greatness makes no mention of shared democratic values, except to blame the EU for subverting democratic processes and undermining liberty and sovereignty. It says the US will support patriotic parties to prevent a future of civilizational collapse in Europe, where certain NATO members will become majority non-European. In the past year, US officials have praised parties like Germany's AfD. Promoting them would be seen as election interference from a country that is supposedly an ally.
I believe that issues such as freedom of expression or the organization of our free societies here, at least in Germany, do not belong in this context. Nor do we believe that anyone needs to give us advice on these matters. They are regulated by our constitutional order.
The question of what to do about Russia is missing from the document. It says that the US should end the perception that NATO will keep expanding, a central demand for Russia to end its war in Ukraine. And it blames European governments for extending the war, allegedly against the wishes of their citizens.
Let's be very clear here. This is all about whiteness. Just as the right in America is freaking out that in the not too distant future, regardless of what they do, America will no longer be a majority white country. They worry about the same thing for Europe. And the easiest way to make people care about that is to use immigration as a weapon. So here's the problem. We in this country are going down a very dark road. Hopefully there will be an opportunity for us next year and in 2028 to put the brakes on, or at least slow the degradation down and give ourselves one more chance to try, at least, to become the kind of multicultural, multiracial democracy we were supposed to be and have every ability to become. By aligning itself with the worst, most extreme right-wing organizations in Europe, America is setting something entirely else into motion. And it is something they may not be able to control. It is certainly something we, American voters, won't be able to control. So this is yet another massive misstep. It is yet another miscalculation that may indeed be something we, as Americans, cannot recover from. Now, other administrations, militaries were more focused on threats from Russia, China, and the Middle East. It seems like the Trump regime is going all in on being heavily focused on Latin American countries. The plan has also said that the U.S. should end the perception that NATO will expand. One country that approved of this security plan was, you'll never guess. You're never going to guess. Who approves of NATO's not ever expanding? Russia, of course. Why? Because they desperately don't want Ukraine to become a member of NATO. Dmitry Peskov, a Kremlin spokesperson, commented on the policy to Russia's state news agency TASS. He said, quote, "The adjustments we're seeing are largely consistent with our vision. We consider this a positive step," unquote. Yes, you could almost say lockstep. Well done, Donald. I'm sure Vladimir Putin is, at least metaphorically speaking, giving you a pat on the head. In much better news, the Washingtonian has announced its 54th annual that's hard to say, Washingtonians of the Year Awards. The outlet honored 10 local heroes who, according to the press release, quote, "are using their experience, smarts, and creativity to make our region a better place to live," unquote. A challenge given the federal government's incursion into Washington, D.C.'s local politics. Honorees include Yasmin Arrington Brooks, who founded Scholarships, a nonprofit that provides financial assistance and other support for children with incarcerated parents. Jean-Michel Giraud, who was also honored for his work as president of Friendship Place, where they offered unhoused people shelter and services to rebuild their lives. Under honoree Judith Sandala's leadership, the Children's Law Center assists hundreds of pro bono attorneys in the area to provide over 5,000 children and families with legal services. These are just a few of the Washington area heroes. All of their stories can be read when the new issue hits the newsstands on December 18th. But I wanted to focus on two people who are being honored this year. My dear friends, Norm Ornstein and Judy Harris, who are being honored for their work and starting a foundation in honor of their son, Matthew. Every year, Matthew's Foundation sponsors a debate camp in Washington, D.C. for local children. Tuition is free. And I had the great good fortune of volunteering for a couple of days this summer, and it was truly one of the most extraordinary experiences I've ever had. You can see the difference that this camp makes in these children's lives. It is an extraordinarily moving tribute to Matthew, who sadly died at a very young age. And Norm and Judy took that unspeakably tragic loss and they turned it into something that is joy and that has made a meaningful impact on hundreds and hundreds of children. I'm hoping to be able to interview Norm soon to talk more about this, but he and Judy are two of the most extraordinary people I've ever known. And as I got to know them better, it's because of them that I made a decision. I only want people in my life like them. I mean, not that there are people like them, but you know what I mean. The quality of people who not just make my life better, but who make me a better person. And they do that for anybody who comes within their orbit. And I forgot to mention the reason that they started a debate camp in Matthew's honor is because he was a champion debater in college. And it is a fitting tribute to a young man who was smart and funny and empathetic and kind and dedicated and loyal. So I am so proud to be friends with Norm and Judy, and I congratulate them on this wonderful honor. Okay, it is time for today's emotional support moment, thankfully. So let's breathe first. Okay, so I thought we'd unwind with some winter waves because I don't know, I'm feeling the need for waves and sea and stuff. So winter waves rolling onto a quiet shore. So just soak it in and keep breathing. That always helps. I hope you think so too. Okay, let us get your questions, comments, etc. Starting with my dear Cheryl, who gifted 1 Married Trump Media membership. Thank you so much, as always. And the Mighty Cheryl twofer. Ta-da! This is Joe Colorado Swear Jar Fee. Thank you for that. Oh, and look, the eponymous Joe Colorado himself. This is his first newly named Swear Jar Fee. See? If I'd known I could get a swear jar named after me, I maybe would have sworn more. I know some of you wouldn't like that, so I think Joe Colorado deserves it. Well done. Marcia is a super sticker. Thank you so very much for that. Much appreciated. And also thank you to Nanner3200. This is for the Joe Jar because today sucked. Oh, I kind of like Joe Jar, but I'm sort of formal. So I, like Julie, thank you, Julie. I'm going to call it the For the Joe Colorado Swear Jar. Oh, hi, Mary. Hello. A member for 2 months. Don't panic. Think. Excellent. Comment. I love the community here. Helps me stay sane. Fabulous. That's good because everything's crazy. Ghostly Air 59. Hey there, and thank you so very much. Comment. Hi, Mary. The Frankenstein analogy from you broke yesterday was brilliant. I thank you. I almost felt sorry for him that I remembered he did nothing to stop himself from becoming a monster. Everyone should hear you talk about that. Well, I really appreciate that. And yeah, that really resonated with me too. Yeah, because I think, on the one hand, yes, he is beyond redemption for sure. But to be fair, he was somebody else's creature, I think the epigraph for my first book was a Victor Hugo quote. I'm going to see if I can find it because it's relevant. It sort of speaks to the same issue we're talking about here. Let's see. The quote is this: if the soul is left in darkness, sins will be committed. The guilty one is not he who commits the sin, but the one who causes the darkness. That was from Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. And the person I was referring to, the person who created the darkness would be my grandfather. And the person committing the sins would be Donald. But now he's both. So no redemption, no forgiveness, he gets off the hook enough. We don't have to let him off the hook. And we won't. Ever. Frownhouse, thank you so very much. And your comment, thank you so much for pointing out the cruelty directed at trans people. It's a measure of their views about self-determination in general. Yep. Yes, indeed. Well, see, that's the thing. They cannot change who they are, fundamentally. Right? And that's a problem for most of them because they're just awful. Julie, thank you very, very much. Comment. Hi, Mary. I have gay, bi, and trans folks in my family. I love and accept each one and fear for them today as well. I am an LGBTQIA+ ally. Well, thank you. And yeah, listen, guys, if we are not part of that community, we must be allies to that community. And even if we're we're not every single letter in that community. I think that's impossible. So we need to be allies to each other within the community. So allyship cannot be underestimated. Joe Colorado, again, thank you so much. Comment, the only A+ he gets is in line. Well, yeah, I would give him an A++++ if I were an immature moron. But I understand there's no such thing. So yes, an A+ for lying. Absolutely. Proud liberal to you. Thank you very much. Comment, make America gay again. I love you, Mary. Well, thank you. And yes, the gayer, the better. Truly. In the Middle of Nowhere, thank you so much for gifting one Mary Trump Media membership. That's excellent. Proud Liberal to you, thank you again. Comment, Charlie Kirk's new book today, published by Don Jr. Oh, Donnie. How do you have time to publish books? Aren't you? I mean, Jesus, you spend all your time stealing money from the American people. It's a busy life you lead. In the Middle of Nowhere, thank you again. Comment, Waj and Danielle had a great conversation about white supremacy, good historical background info. Also enjoying Separation of Church and State and Hate by John Fugelsang, Debunking MAGA Christian National. John's book is phenomenal. Everybody should read it. I've known John for a few years, but we actually just met in person for the first time a couple of months ago at the Freedom from Religion Foundation conference in, where was it? Someplace in South Carolina. Sorry, I can't remember. I'd never been to South Carolina. I've driven through it, but I'd never been there before. Anyway, it was a great conference. It was awesome. I got to hang out meet John for the first time. And yeah, a bunch of us hung out afterwards, including Go CR59, who brought some cool swag. Yeah, it was a great time. And John is a very smart man. And you really, really should read his book because he really knows his stuff. Lisa, wow, thank you so very, very much. That's incredibly generous of you, truly. Comment, I'm at my wit's end with all the cruelty. Each day is worse, and I no longer know how to continue dealing with the pain in this country. It hurts so much to know so many people are being hurt, abused, and parents having to watch their children suffer so much. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. The only antidote in the short term is for us to be better, to be kinder, to have more compassion, more empathy, to reach out more, to stay connected. In the long term, it's changing the culture because this is cultural. We suddenly live at a time in which things that used to be considered strengths, things that used to be respected, admitting when you're wrong, for example, being kind, helping people weaker than you, all of that, generosity, all of that's out. It's absolutely the opposite. It is living in this country right now. And I don't, honestly, I wrote about this in my book 5 years ago, or it was published 5 years ago. As soon as he was elected, my biggest concern was that this country was going to become a macro version of my family. And it has. Living in America is now like growing up in my family, and it is unspeakable. So I get it. I empathize. We need to change the culture. Also, by the way, this whole bullshit notion that kindness is weakness, it is very hard to be kind in many instances. What's easy is being a vicious, mean creep. That's easy. I mean, for some people. Ave Geek Julia 1994 comment, congratulations, Norman Junie. Absolutely. Elizabeth, thank you very much for that. This is a fee for cat pawing screen and turning Mary off. Oh, cat. I'm a cat person. And maybe your cat mistook me for a cat toy. I understand. It's okay. In the middle of nowhere, holy cow. What's up with you guys tonight? Thank you so much. Extremely generous. Comment, this is in celebration of my 75th birthday, which is tomorrow. Did you know that 75 is the new 40? It's true. I'll be with my grandsons tomorrow and we'll miss the live show. Well, I think that's a good excuse. Have a most wonderful, wonderful birthday. And thank you again. Susan, thank you very much. As always, Susan, comment. Thank you, Mary, for being so kind. You have a beautiful heart. We are lucky to share this community with you. Well, I mean, you guys are largely responsible for creating it. So thank you for being here. Zella Joey, thank you as always. Comment, the United States has never been an all-white country. America is once an all-brown country. It was invaded by white men approximately 500 years ago. Personally, I like all the differences. No kidding. Yeah, I mean, it's these myths these people have, these misguided, bigoted myths they have about, who created America, who built America. Well, it wasn't you white guys. I mean, unless you consider doing it on the backs of black and brown people to be some kind of accomplishment. Yeah, as long as you're willing to commit some genocide and steal a lot of land and resources from the native population, sure. But that's the thing, they are. Diversity is our strength, and that's another myth we need to get rid of. That is another cultural trope we need to destroy. Diversity is strength. Homogeneity, that's not just weakness. That is debilitating. Mary the Jedi has been a member for 2 months. Very cool. Comment, I look forward to your live streams every day. So do we. Thank you. Jana, thank you so much for that comment. Hi, Mary. Here's a round of swears and middle fingers. Obviously not at you. Well, thank you for clarifying, though. But at all and every of the things. Yep. Proud liberal to you. Thank you again. My goodness. Comment, Wolves and Finance Zach DeGregorio is gay. LOL. Okay. Good for him. Susan, thank you again for gifting 5 Maritime Media memberships. That's fantastic. Susan, my goodness, you're spoiling us. Thank you. And this is the comment is wishing our very own in the middle of nowhere a very happy 75th birthday tomorrow. Cheers, friend. Enjoy. I second that. And Gloria has been a member for 6 months, so that's fantastic. But check this out. Today is her 80th birthday. Comment, all the best out there. Congratulations. I hope you have had and are having the most phenomenal 80th birthday. Good for you. All right, guys, that does it for us. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for what's it called? I think it's called watching. Sorry, words. Watching on YouTube, live streaming on Twitter, and over at our Substack, The Good in Us, and listening to the podcast, to all of our new members, everybody gifting memberships, all of our super stickers, and everybody giving us donations. Thank you so, so very much. Again, the easiest way to support us is to subscribe to the channel. It's free. It gives you access to actually all of the public content, including not just the lives, but our pre-recorded videos, which drop every single day. That's 7 days a week. So the second easiest way to support us is to watch those videos, like them, share them, comment on them, and preferably watch them all the way through. We hope that they're worth watching all the way through. We work hard on them. Also, as for subscribing, when you subscribe, click on the bell icon just to make sure that you choose all. That way, anytime a video drops, you'll be alerted. Otherwise, it's left up to the not particularly helpful YouTube algorithm. Yes, I'm minimizing that issue. To our amazing moderators, thank you so very much for what you do every single day. Really, for just because. I mean, it's just quite something when you think about how much work you guys do, and how not just how you help keep this community a place people want to be, but how you keep people in the community safe. We truly appreciate you, and of course, to my unbelievable team who continues to blow my mind on a daily basis, especially on Monday. Like, Mondays are tough. So thank you, as always. We will be back tomorrow night for Mary Trump Live at 6 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget, that's Monday through Friday, every night, 6 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget to check out our other videos. And in the meantime, everybody, please stay safe and be kind. Bye.